Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. In light of last night's Sunday address looking at Jasmine Crockett's meaningless sniping at the most racist politician in Texas, I think the right follow-up would be to discuss some alternatives, actually one in particular. And if you haven't already watched the Sunday address, you probably should, because it also gives you information about the group that Crockett had been showing out for, Human Rights Campaign. I don't believe for an instant that Jasmine Crockett is the best that we can do. In fact, I know she isn't, but she has organized white money behind her, and we see her trying to climb the political ladder within the Democratic Party. But you know something? Two can play that game. We all know that these bootlicks that white power picked up, propped up, and presented to us happen to be a large part of the problem. But we also have to look to ourselves for a solution, and we all have to start somewhere. That begins with gaining positions in the official areas of power. Getting on the political ladder doesn't necessarily mean coming in as a mayor or a congressman or senator, but what it does mean is seizing political office. And that's what I mean. Seize it. Allow me to use this analogy. When a young lion is out on the plains, lions don't live in jungles, by the way, they live on the prairie. Young lions aren't expert hunters, at least not yet. That takes time. In the beginning, the young lions first have to learn how to spy their prey and how to take them down. Now, as with any endeavor, if you go after the biggest and juiciest prize, you'll probably fail because you're not ready yet. Every lion wants to take down the biggest impala or the biggest buffalo because you can live for days off of a kill like that. The problem is the biggest impalas are usually the fastest, and the biggest buffalo are usually the strongest, and they both often put up a bigger fight too. That's how they live to become the biggest. And when it comes to buffalo, it's almost impossible for a single lion, even a large one, to take down a buffalo alone. A kill that big is a group sport. So, does that mean that the lion gives up and sticks to eating whatever rotten scraps he can find out in the field? Of course not. What it means is he needs to work his way up. Start by examining the target, and look for one that seems easiest to capture. This isn't about taking down the big cheese first. This is about getting some points on the board. Spot an impala that appears weaker. Perhaps it's smaller, or maybe not as spry and fast as the others. Observe. See if it struggles to keep up with the rest of the herd. Impalas in particular will often try to defend each other from lion attacks, so spotting one that the rest of the herd's not keeping such a close eye on is a good place to start. Size up the target. Figure out how much effort you'll need to put out to take it down. How much time, how much force you need to expend. This is performing your due diligence. And once you've spotted a good target, one that's a known quantity, you close in and take it down. Now, when it comes to politics, the same rules apply. This is where Republicans understand the game better than Democrats. They realize that politics is a ladder. You start by going for small offices, ones that aren't very sexy, but that's how you get your foot onto the political ladder. And the reason why is school board members become city council members and county commissioners. City council members and county commissioners become mayors and state representatives. Mayors and state representatives become governors, congressmen, and senators. Governors, congressmen, and senators become presidents. Ordinarily, I would say that very few people have ever entered into politics as a novice and then gone straight to the White House, but the reality is there's only been one, Donald Trump. But then again, we live in a society where celebrity and political figures happen to overlap. Politicians are celebrities, so that being the case, that's why he was able to go ahead and skip a couple of rungs, but you're not going to be able to do that. So if you're going to decide to get into politics, my recommendation would be to go for something that's actually feasible for your first step, something that's not very sexy. School board, county clerk, judgeships, offices that aren't legislative or executive in nature. There are others, of course, but offices like this tend to require the least amount of campaign funds to be raised. Elections are based on two factors. How much money do you need, and how many people do you need to vote for you? As for the costs, you can look up online how much the current office holder of the seat that you want to capture spent on their campaign, and of course on election night they tell you exactly how many votes they got. The thing about elections is that the majority of eligible voters almost never turn out to vote. They have no reason to because no one's offering them anything. Now, before we go any farther, there is something that a lot of black folks who try to run for political office don't understand, and that is most successful political campaigns begin 2 years before the election. When people try to call themselves waiting until the filing deadline to start their campaign, that's simply not enough time. Political races are called campaigns because they're just like military campaigns. It's all in the timing. It takes time to get your name out there, to find out who you can get on your side. The only way that you can leapfrog that process is if you have massive amounts of money, and even then, that only works if you already have name recognition, which most newcomers to politics don't, so that won't work for you. However, there is one thing that can overcome a huge war chest: shoe leather. If you're not bashful about introducing yourself to people, a lot of people, then the best advertisement you can give yourself is yourself. Every city, town, village, and hamlet has some sort of political in-crowd, machine for want of a better term. Now, of course, you'll always have the local clergy involved. The ties between politics and the pulpit are incestuous, but also newspaper or local radio or TV stations and certain businessmen as well as social groups who all know each other and try to vouch for each other, a mutual admiration society. This is how we keep getting the same crowd of liars and losers every single election. But understand that the main thing that they prey on is that no matter how many people turn out to vote, it will never be a majority of the electorate. It's no secret that the largest political party in America is the constituency that votes for the couch. As a result, this country's being ruled over by the least popular people in the room. That's where the white media comes in. They use lies, manipulation, and hype to distract people from caring about their own issues, and in many cases, they get people so riled up for the latest fast-talking BS artist that the voters totally overlook the fact that Obama or Biden or Kamala or Trump or whomever hasn't actually said anything, much less anything relevant. Every election cycle, it seems the number of people turning out to vote gets lower and lower. Problem is that elections aren't based on eligible voters. It's based on how many people actually bother to vote. And if only 3 people turn out to vote for an election, well, whoever gets 2 out of those 3 votes wins. We don't live in a democracy, people. Get that out of your head. This system wasn't made to be responsive to the needs of the people. It was made to protect the interest of a few wealthy white men and to make sure that nobody ever took away control of their property. And by property, that means black people, you and me. I've been saying for 15 plus years, to bring about justice, you're going to have to make this system do things it wasn't designed to do. And it wasn't designed to listen to black people or our concerns. This system was created by corrupt racists for corrupt racists in order to perpetuate corruption and racism. And the people who all these regular politicians deal with, they recognize it too, but they also know that they're being offered something by this corrupt system, so they play along with it. And I'm talking about the politics that go on in your hometown. Yes, including a number of them black politicians that some of you may actually look and go, no, not my guy. He's pure as the wind-driven snow. No, most likely him too. That's a lesson that we should have learned by how those black sellouts acted after they shot down reparations out there in California. That's a sad fact, but it is a fact. And you want to hear another one? The only people, and I mean only ones out of 8 billion people on this planet who want to change this is you and me. And this is a task that we cannot neglect. The white media and the white political powers that be have already figured out that black folks are starting to wake up and get on code, so they've begun trying to flood the zone with more of their hand-picked puppets. These are some new faces with the same old tricks, trying to pretend as if, oh, here's a new crop of new black leadership. Oh, these are fresh faces. They're so different. No, they're not. It's the same gang of sellouts and suck-ups that white power has always propped up. Yeah, the names may be different, but the slimy tricks these guys pull and their utter refusal to stand up for any of our interests, that's exactly the same. As is the same old gang of political operators that these guys answer to. Keep in mind that just a few years ago, nobody even knew who Jasmine Crockett was. And once she came on the scene, quote-unquote, the white media's been telling you that she's a great fresh new face. And how did that turn out? Either we'll give rise to our own field of candidates that we chose, or we'll continue to be inundated with a bumper crop of bootlicks. That's the bad news. Now, here's the good news. We can actually win this fight. No, it won't be quick or easy, but taking power never is. What matters is that it can be done. The first reason for this is you're not alone. I don't care what anyone tells you. You're not. There's plenty of people who feel the exact same way you do, but most folks sit back waiting for somebody else to step across that line. Why not you? Now, when it comes to politics, I'm not concerned with whether someone's making deals to stay in office. Politics are mostly about making deals. But at some point, whoever's in office, they have to actually voice our interest and say it out loud. No tiptoeing around it, no using weasel words, and definitely no telling us that you're not going to do what we say. We are all we've got. So let's do the work and continue to spread the word that we're getting real selective now about who gets our money and our votes. The reason that we get so many bootlicks, shills, turncoats, and backstabbers amongst us is that they know they can betray our community and undermine us and still be able to eat the next day because white supremacy will feed them. Well, the same goes for the black political misleadership class. The Jasmine Crockett's, the Jim Clyburns, the Daniel Camerons, the Tim Scotts, and the Barack Obamas. They know that they can attack us, and they don't have to worry about eating the next day because white supremacy will feed them. But, at least where these politicians are concerned, that changes if we discipline our vote. Think about it. Had we stuck to our guns in 2008 when Obama was running for office and made it clear that his disrespect completely and thoroughly disqualified him from getting our vote, he would have been politically finished. Instead of having millions of dollars in speaking fees and white corporate money like he's getting today, instead of being the first quote-unquote non-white president, he would have instead wound up as a two-bit lawyer still working for his wife somewhere in Chicago. See, white power may be able to feed these political prostitutes, but it cannot vote them into office. Only we can do that. That's the terrifying secret that white supremacy doesn't want you to wake up to. Our political discipline can overcome their dollars, if enough of us get on code. Just ask Kamala Harris if you doubt me. I began putting the word out about her 7 years ago when she first ran for the Senate. I didn't start sounding the alarm on that when she mounted her campaign in 2019. I did at least 2 years before that. You see what I'm getting at? I warned everyone well in advance what was coming and sounded the alarms. White power gave money to her Senate race and then her first failed attempt to become president, but the word was out by then. And she crashed and burned. And while Biden tried to do an I'm white and I say so by making her his VP pick, the black grassroots stayed on code. So when she mounted her second do-nothing candidacy for president, that $1 billion in white donor money went up in smoke. It meant absolutely nothing. That is the power of disciplining our dollar and our vote. Yes, when it comes to our vote, we've talked about withholding it from parties that don't do anything for us. And that is a defensive posture, and the reason we had to start there is because power is used as a shield long before it's used as a sword. Now, we don't necessarily have the sword razor sharp at this point. In fact, we're still taking that raw steel and hammering it into shape. But the process has begun. What we've got to do is to stay the course. This isn't about coming roaring out of the gate. The black media didn't do that. This is about persistence. You don't need to ask anyone's permission to start looking for political offices to take over. However, you will need to ask your own neighbors for their support. And given the competition, that's probably more than anyone seeking office in the past has ever done for them. The white media has done an excellent job of locking people's minds into a mental cage, making them think to themselves that the odds are just too great, nothing's ever going to change. That's the way that white power controls people. By getting them to give up before they even think to fight, and then making sure to derange people's internal politics by sending in bootlicks and shills and sellouts. That's exactly what they've done to us. It's time for that to change. And yes, I know that a lot of you, all of us in fact, are completely and thoroughly put out and frustrated with this sad state of affairs. But before you go giving in to despair or go letting anybody tell you that the fight is hopeless, you will be able to draw strength and votes from one immutable fact. No matter what the black misleadership class tries to say, no matter what the white media tries to tell you, no matter what the so-called experts try to claim, there's plenty of people, a majority in fact, who feel the same way you do. And I know that a lot of people may feel, well, if you're not starting off by capturing some big sexy office, one that's going to really make a ton of headlines, then is it really worth it? And the answer is yes, because all politics is local. That's not just a slogan, it's a fact. And as far as what it takes to change the political dynamic of an entire people, do not ever underestimate how important starting small can be. Even the biggest redwood starts from a single seed. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Suleiman Alaji, Michael Clark, Antithesis, Deborah Cooper, and Mustang Crazy ATL. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.